All right. I think we're going to get up and rolling. I feel like I have a little bit of it's a bit of a half-baked idea here for the live stream. So thanks for hanging in there. Almighty Ohm already swinging for the fences here. Sometimes we need to leave reason aside to explore the sense and nonsense. A little young, which is fitting because there was a bit of a Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson episode that dropped today. We may get to it. Let me know if the sound levels are okay. I feel like I'm a little on the low side, but I turn it up just a little, just a hair. And what usually happens is I do a slight adjustment, and for whatever reason, it like throws the whole thing off. So welcome. There was something that Jordan Peterson said that had to do with the nature of play, and I wanted to find that. I wanted to find it before before the live stream, but I didn't. That's not what I want. I want it was in the beginning. Yeah, there we go. The world when kids go, you think, oh yeah, it's really. Oh, that was interesting. Now this episode, I'll do more. I'll do more with the Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan episode for sure. But I thought we might. I at least wanted to find this because I do think it ties into the nature of conspiracy theories, why we need them. I also wanted to, let me do something really quick. I need to not show, let's see. We can do this. We can do this. We can do a little bit of this. How's everybody doing tonight? Again, sort of, we're jumping in. We are in medias res. We are in the middle of things, as it were. And, I could kind of click around for a little while, but also could just say, how's it going? I actually got tagged in 2 videos today, which is kind of interesting. And I wanted to give a shout out to our friends at the Sword and Staff Multiverse. You can check them out here. Let me put that here. You know what? The other thing, gosh darn it, I never do this. Oops. I never do this. I never do this right. I never remember to turn on the live stream replay, the chat replay. So I always put these links in the chat, and then I think my default setting. So that's the Sword and the Staff Multiverse. I sat down with him to talk a little bit about the nature of conspiracy theories. It was interesting. Like why do people kind of gravitate towards them? And that takes us back to this Joe Rogan. Oh, you know what I should also do? I should also link that we are live. This Joe Rogan, Dave Smith, Douglas Murray video that for some reason has legs. And I think it has legs actually for something that Piers Morgan said. Let me make sure. You guys are going to have to let me know also if the level between my audio and the clip is good. I went back to the live. So we're actually picking up where the live stream last week left off. I was kind of surprised how much reaction this conversation got. And it was because, and partly what Piers Morgan said I thought was true. And he said, let me see, we'll get real big. We'll get just there. We'll just get real big. Piers Morgan said that this was not just a debate about war, which is important by itself, but the thing that made it important was that it illustrated how the nature of online debate, the nature of online discourse has changed. And that is why I think this episode has legs as far as Joe Rogan. Now, I haven't actually gone back to see, is this my clip? This is my clip. let's look at okay, so that just gives me the full video. Return to the clip. No. The full video at this point has 3.9 million views, which I actually think, it's funny, Joe has this huge podcast, at least on YouTube. It's like, yeah, I mean, he'll have videos that don't crack 1 million. So 3.9 though, Dave Solo has 2 million, and it's a week older. You've got 1.5 Ben Lamb. What other high profile guys did he have on? I mean, I guess this Gary Braca ones usually get pretty high. Tim Dillon is a regular, so he gets high views. We'll see what this Jordan Peterson one does. I felt like I watched the first few minutes of it, and it felt like Jordan kind of came in with the right attitude. I felt like the last time Jordan was on, he came in with an agenda, and it just didn't work. The conversation just didn't flow very well. So 3.9 million views is pretty good. It's one of the higher viewed videos recently. Ian Carroll with 3.6. Even this Daryl Cooper one, which seems to have been talked about a lot, 1.1. And so with 12 days running, 3.9, almost 4 million views, it just has legs. And I think it is true. It has sort of challenged us to rethink the way debate is happening online, the way dialogue is happening online. And here's one of the themes that I want to pull out from this, which is nuance. It's a freaking debate about war, and then it's like, who wins? Who wins a debate about war? I mentioned this to Paul Vanderklay, and I think him and I agree on this. It's like, nobody wins a debate. Dave Smith didn't win this debate. Douglas Murray doesn't win this debate because people are still freaking dying. And so that takes the importance of the dialogue, that we find a way to do the dialogue. Honor the dialogue itself is very important, because we're talking about very meaningful things. And as we get to these clips with Jordan Peterson, the Douglas Murray Dave Smith debate came up with Jordan Peterson, and he talks about this. He's like, you guys are navigating a very difficult thing. So the question is, how do we navigate? Is it even possible to navigate something as nuanced as, and if you watched my live stream last week or the clip that I did, it's like, it's not just that this group is good and right and this group is bad and wrong. We're all a mix of some of this, right? We're all kind of a mixed bag there. I do think that, sort of the reformed view of total depravity would help here, but none of these people are reformed. So, okay, sorry, this is going to really bug me, and I'm going to have to just live with it, but my audio freaking doodad interface is falling over. So hopefully we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Everything's going to be fine. So let's get to some clips. Let's make sure we have our microphone. Let's make sure we have our headphones. Nobody panic. Okay, that one's plugged in. Like I said. Oh, nope, nobody panic. That was deliberate. Like I said, it's kind of half-baked. There we go. If I wear the big ones, then my head gets too hot. I'm already struggling with the heat in this room while I drink some hot tea. So we'll pick up where we left off. This was, and again, let me know about the levels here, and we'll make adjustments. We'll make adjustments as we go, if needed. So, if you've got your headphones in, you have been warned.
Fringe views. That if you mainstream very, very fringe views, which are easily able to be debunked, if you mainstream them, at some point that view that was so fringe will be what eager, very disconnected, unhappy people are going to start playing with too. And if these people are such experts in how you see a society go weird, they can look at what is happening to a portion of the right everywhere on this stuff. There is a portion of the right across the West that is playing this very dark game, and they're doing it deliberately, and you can't not be aware of that.
They're playing a dark game by bringing fringe views into light. So that's where we did touch on that point last week in the old live stream. So here's what's interesting. The context of what Douglas Murray is saying right now is essentially, why do fringe views become mainstream? And he even agreed with Dave Smith at one point. He's saying, so your point is that fringe views become mainstream? And he said, yes. It's like, so, but what is the problem with that? What is the problem with fringe views? So are fringe views bad? Are they bad because the experts don't agree with those views? Are they bad because Douglas Murray doesn't agree with those views? I don't know why fringe is bad. Fringe is fringe. Fringe is out on the edges. It's a little wild, it could be a little feral out there on the fringes. But, and again, I sift through I think about these things from sort of the biblical Christian worldview, which is a welcoming in of the outsider into the core, right? But then also a sending out. So there's this dynamic within the kingdom of God that welcomes in the fringe, and I would say even fringe views, shows them hospitality. And if they prove to be hostile to your hospitality, then it's okay to ask them to move on, or for you to move on yourself. But there is initially there's a hospitality to the other or the outsider, even in an ideological world or philosophical world. So I don't know why fringe, to me, is not necessarily bad. And we'll get to the two different types of tyranny here. There is the tyranny of anarchy, which is the tyranny of total freedom. There is the tyranny of the sort of the state, and that would be sort of like the propaganda. And so it's like, are fringe views bad because they're not core to like the accepted narrative? Because to me, that's just accepting a different type of tyranny, which is you have this state-run narrative propaganda. And so the freedom that comes with form, I think is sort of the, to do the Jordan Peterson thing, is sort of the dance between order and chaos. I guess maybe that's a Young thing or whatever. Almighty Ohm maybe has a quote for us on that one. But yeah, so that's, and we'll get to this. True freedom, according to Jordan Peterson in the Joe Rogan episode that just dropped, is seen in the voluntary act of play. Play incorporates order and chaos, freedom and form. And you can look at Francis Schaeffer. He did quite a bit on the subject of freedom in form. Too much form, tyranny; too little form, anarchy, right? And so we have to have this balance. So I don't mind the fringe. And I think fringe becomes mainstream when the fringe, right? Again, you're inviting them, you're inviting in a fringe view. You're showing it hospitality. When it is hospitable to you and shows you some benefit and there's a mutual exchange, then the fringe view can become incorporated into the mainstream. It can be central, right? How else are we going to learn anything new if all we do is accept that which has already been accepted? So fringe views, do fringe views become mainstream? Yes. And why? I think because they add some sort of value. But Douglas seems concerned that these fringe views will, well, he says, easily debunked fringe views. I think if they're easily debunked, they never become mainstream. They remain on the fringe. They remain out there. Can they do damage out there? I think so. But the damage is sort of limited. The city, in a sense, remains protected, or the community. And we'll talk about community here in a second.
That if you mainstream very, very fringe views, which are easily able to be debunked, if you mainstream them, at some point that view that was so fringe will be what eager.
Okay, this is important. So it becomes what eager,
very disconnected, unhappy people are going to start playing with too.
Okay, eager, disconnected, unhappy people are playing with. So in Douglas's mind, fringe views belong in this world of unhappy people. What about smart people? What about curious people? Are fringe views not the terrain of curious people? Are fringe views not the terrain of smart people? I would say that it's some of the smartest people who are not afraid to entertain the fringe. I mean, this whole podcast is called Strange Theology. And essentially what God did was introduce into humanity a very foreign idea that there was an infinite personal God and I'm a Trinitarian monotheist, right? So that's the really weird idea. That's a very fringe idea. You don't come up with that on your own. So are fringe views just eager for what? Truth? Maybe some people eager for community. Again, eager for acceptance. Can some of this be dangerous? Yes. Yes, it can be. If we continue along the path of a individuated society, if all we're doing is like it's this individuated approach, individuated project where it's just me by myself trying to figure out whether or not I can blame this group for this atrocity or it was really this group's responsibility. This guy provoked this guy and then that guy retaliated. Therefore, it's called a just war. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know where it's going for that. But it doesn't make sense. Like, people are looking for acceptance, I guess. Okay, so okay, and that's weird. And and so what you're gonna do is society's gonna get weird, and I guess weird leads to collapse. Maybe that's Douglas's fear. I don't know. Let me know what you think. But he definitely seems to be concerned about the weird ideas. Now, he calls it a dark game, and I think he's not wrong. I think it is a little bit of a dark game. I think the jester and the king play a very dangerous game, right? How much can the jester mock the kingdom? How much can the king participate and allow himself to be humiliated for the sake of the health of the kingdom? That is kind of a dangerous game. Is it a dark game? I think what's happening with podcasting is, particularly with Joe Rogan and some of these others that are curious, is there's no fear of going into that darkness. There's no fear of entering into kind of the spooky realm. And I think that eager people may be drawn because they are looking for, I don't know, they're looking for a narrative that resonates on a level that the current narrative doesn't resonate. The current narrative seems like it has run out of gas. And I would say people are looking for meaning. People are looking for something that says like there's more to life than just like going to college, get a degree, get a job, get into debt, pay off my debt, then die. There's got to be more to it. So here we go. Jordan Peterson picks up on this. Okay, so this darkness, this dark game. Jordan Peterson kind of picks up on this, and they do it unintentionally, but it takes them into the realm, back into this conversation. So their conversation, he talks about online psychopaths, which, again, is there a dark part to this? I think there is. And so, I'll try to drum up that attacking the darkness video.
The people who studied the dark triad, these were people who originally studied psychopaths, and they moved into ordinary personality, so to speak, on the fringes. They showed that the non-criminal psychopaths, so the fringe cases, are Machiavellian. They use their language to manipulate. They're narcissistic. They want unearned reputation. That's what a narcissist wants. And they're psychopathic, which makes them predators or parasites.
Okay, so notice he's talking about people on the fringes, right? So these people that are studying psychopaths had to go into this other realm of just studying normal people, relatively high-functioning normal people who also were sort of on the fringes. So these we're hopefully we're connecting the dots there. Fringe ideas, fringe people, whatever. And what do we do with that fringe?
That's pretty bad, those three things. they had to expand the nomenclature after a while because they found that they were also sadistic, which implied that if you're Machiavellian and narcissistic and psychopathic, you develop a sufficiently bad view of your fellow man that their undeserved pain is a source of pleasure to you. And that's what's being enabled online.
Yes.
Because we've evolved real specific mechanisms to keep such things under control in face-to-face interaction. Lack of anonymity, for example, within a community. Psychopaths in the real world, they wander. They have to move from place to place because people who figure out who they are, and they're held responsible. They're particularly held responsible by men. Online, they escape from that. They escape from that protective. They escape from that system of constraints, and they have free reign, and they can find other people like them very rapidly, and they can gang together. And so this is like, I can really see this starting to happen on the right. Like, I've been tracking psychopathic behavior on the right for probably 4 years, something like that, especially on the anti-Semitic side, because that's really where it reared its head first. And
why is that?
There's nothing more annoying than a successful minority. Right. The people who studied the dark are particularly held responsible.
So, okay, so hopefully you're seeing the themes that Douglas Murray was trying to point out. And I think Dave Smith in that conversation sort of was like, yeah, I kind of get your point, but I don't exactly know what the point you're making. It's like, yeah, we all see this. We all see that this is a possibility. That doesn't necessarily mean whatever, these people are right. But, okay, so there's something about this little, what does he point out, though? What does he point out about, can these people, these psychopaths exist online? Yes, if you allow them to. If you play their game. If they have to play your game, I think it's a different story.
By men. Online, they escape from that. They escape from that protective. They escape from that system of constraints, and they have free reign, and they can find other people like them very rapidly.
Yeah, they escape from a system of constraints. Again, if we're just individuated, if we're just going online and we are isolated, Grim Grizz has the virtually not alone, right? Like, we're not alone. So don't play the isolation game. Isolation is a problem. I mean, I think that's where dangerous people can do really bad things. And I think that was one of Douglas Murray's concerns, right? What does he say? Eager and disconnected people. So when people are disconnected online, they can become vulnerable to bad actors. They can also be bad actors. So, shout out to Paul Vanderklay. I mean, what does he say? Like you got to have a microphone and you got to have a video camera. I mean, I think the video camera sometimes is a problem, but so far it hasn't been that much of a problem that you can't actually at least begin to build some sort of community online. So I actually think Douglas Murray, Dave Smith, Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, on some level, don't quite grasp what someone like Paul Vanderklay understands, what someone like Grim Grizz understands, what someone like Chad the Girl Dad, they understand. There is some form of community online. So people don't just have free reign. There is, again, going back to the analogy of play, there is freedom in form. There is a form. You have to kind of abide by some rules. And if you're unwilling to play by those rules, then you out yourself as a psychopath. You out yourself to the community as being someone who cannot be trusted. And that's essentially like, what community is requires, right? Is community the antidote to online psychopathy. Communities are built on trust. Trust is built on honesty, vulnerability, and sacrifice. Again, that give and take. Are you willing to give up something of yourself? Are you willing to become vulnerable? Are you willing to do something for the benefit of the community rather than yourself? And time. I think over time, you just kind of go, this person. Now, is that perfect? No. Are there people that can still manipulate a system that's built on trust? Certainly. But it seems like, I guess the example there would be something like the church. It's like the church is built on this sense of, it should be, I realize church is kind of a big word and people can define it in many different ways. But what I mean is the actual church, the church as God sees her, is built on sacrifice, honesty, trust, and time. And yet, is the church taken advantage of because of that hospitality, because of that sacrifice, because of that willingness to maybe extend trust? Yeah, certainly. So communities are maybe the antidote here to this threat, and I think it is real, of what Douglas Murray was talking about with Dave. But I think that the other side of it is you can't use that to then say, well, then just subscribe to the accepted narrative, the narrative that the experts are putting out, the narrative that the state is putting out, the narrative that the tyrants are putting out. That doesn't, just because there are people who can do bad things online and manipulate communities, that doesn't mean that the antidote to that is just trust the state propaganda. I think there's a freedom in form that needs to happen, and a bit of a trust in the ability of the community to understand when someone has evil intention, something like that.
Now that's part of it. And I'm going to I might as well.
Okay, so we'll double back. He was saying, why does this like tend towards anti-Semitism? And he was saying, there's nothing. What is he? I'll get it wrong, and then I'll get.
And they can gang together. Yeah. And so this is like, I can really see this starting to happen on the right. Like I've been tracking psychopathic behavior on the right for probably 4 years, something like that, especially on the anti-Semitic side, because that's really where it reared its head first. And
why is that?
There's nothing more annoying than a successful minority.
Nothing more annoying than a successful minority. Now, do you agree with this? I think there is certainly anti-Semitism. I think there's certainly anti-Semitism on the right. But is that where it normally like first creeps in?
For probably 4 years, something like that, especially on the anti-Semitic. On the right for probably 4 years.
Anyway, I don't know. I mean, there's something to that, but I feel like we're missing something. We're missing something if we were just like, this is the first real barometer is what's the precursor to anti-Semitism, right? Where does that actually come from? Where does that tendency come from? Is it the, well, think about this. Well, is it the anti-community type of mindset? Listen.
In trouble right away too.
Yeah, for sure.
Now that's part of it. And I'm going to I might as well get myself in trouble right away too.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
this is a real subject.
Well, so it's a real terrible subject.
It's interesting because if you don't criticize it enough, you're compromised. If you criticize, it's like when it comes to anti-Semitism, like it's one of those things where you can't separate. It's a religion, and it's also a race, and it's also a government.
Mm-hmm.
That's where things get weird.
Right.
And then there's also the concept of intelligence agencies and compromise that also gets attached to it, the manipulation of world markets and money, and there's a lot to unpack. And then there's regular Jewish people have nothing to do with that.
Well, the Jews, too, they're very successful.
There's just regular Jewish people that have nothing to do with that. So, okay, this takes us back to why we need more conspiracy theories. I think we need more conspiracy theories so that the real crazy ones can out themselves and so that the community can sift through them, right? And then the ones that actually hold some truth, the fringe ideas that should come into the mainstream, can be sort of filtered, sifted, analyzed, if you will, and then we go, okay, this actually there's some reasons for this. And again, does that allow us to have the nuance of maybe being critical of a nation like Israel when Israel does something wrong without being an anti-Semite, right? Because that's the thing there. It's like, oh, you're critical of Israel, you must be a part of this group. It's like, no, I'm not. I can be critical of Israel without being an anti-Semite because Israel's not perfect. I can be, it's like, Yeah. So anyway, is nuance possible? I think it is. I think nuance is possible. I keep trying. Maybe I'm not the best spokesperson for nuance, but yeah. So that's maybe why we need more conspiracy theories. We need more conspiracy theories because I think it will eventually be kind of there's an exposure. They will, the real bad actors, and again, this goes back to the psychopaths, they're allowed to operate in the dark, and they're allowed to find people who are individuated and vulnerable, and then they perpetuate their evil intent there. But if people are connected to a community, and if people exist in the light, then this whole sort of nasty part of humanity can be, it's not going to be, I mean, we need Jesus ultimately, but that could be the antidote that we're looking for is to bring people into community and to bring people into the light.
Unpack. And then there's regular Jewish people. Have nothing to do with that.
Well, the Jews, too, they're very successful.
They're also a walled garden, right?
Meaning?
Meaning it's very difficult to join. They don't proselytize. They don't try to get you to join. Right. And they're all very tightly knit.
Well, community.
Yeah, community. They're very tight knit in that regard. They stick together. Well, and if you understand the history, obviously, of Nazi Germany and of persecution in Eastern Europe, you have to. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, all these complex things are multidimensional. I mean,
and so again, there's a community that bands together for safety, right? It's like there is a real threat in Nazi Germany. And what do we need? Well, we need a community of people who we trust. Okay, who do we trust? Well, I mean, I think essentially we trust who's in our tribe. We trust the people who are like us. And we naturally can give them a little bit more trust than we would the other, right? And so when there's a real threat, when there's a real big monster out there, that hospitality gets sacrificed for safety. And I'm not sure, like, again, as a Christian person, God didn't do that. He sacrificed himself to use the weapons of the enemy to actually undo what the enemy is doing. So there's something there that I wrestle with. I understand the nature of needing to protect against the tyrant. But there's a way to defeat the tyrant that doesn't sacrifice hospitality. That's a weird way of saying it. I'm not saying you invite people who are willing to do you harm, but that's how you expose the psychopaths, right? You invite them in to play the game. This is how the court jester exposes the king. The reason the jester and the king are playing a dangerous game is because the kingdom, right? So Socrates played with the idea of the soul of humanity in the city, right? The soul is writ large in the city or in the kingdom. And if the kingdom is sick because the king is a tyrant, then it affects everybody. So the court jester comes in as an antidote to tyranny because the tyrant cannot be sort of confronted. He needs to be invited in to play a game. And he might not, I mean, let's be honest. We have tyrannical tendencies in our own soul, right? Like we can become tyrannical and not know it. And so the jester invites the king into the game, and then the king is revealed to be, like his heart is revealed to be what it is. Is he a tyrant or is he magnanimous? And what we want is a king who's magnanimous. What we don't want is a king who's a tyrant. And a king who can play the game with the jester and laugh at himself then shows his kingdom that he's not a tyrant. I think the psychopaths online, I think that's the same kind of dark game, right? Is you invite these people in and eventually they expose themselves for being who they are. Jesus taught in parables not to conceal the truth of the kingdom, but to reveal the nature of the heart of his audience. So it's something like that going on. I'm sorry if this is sort of like super esoteric, weird. I don't know. Let me know how you're doing. How's everybody doing on a Tuesday night? How's your Tuesday night going? I kind of feel like I just jumped into this, and partly I do feel like there's a lot going on, and so I kind of was eager to jump in and just sort of get it going. I don't know that I said like, hi, welcome. I don't know that I extended you all the hospitality that I've been talking about. So let me know if this is provoking any thoughts in you, because again, it's sort of, one of the things that I do with this podcast is I've sort of pushed myself out into the fringe of like, is this making sense to me even? And I think there's something to it, but I don't know that we're there yet. I think, who said this? Actually, it comes up in this Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan episode, where he talks about how people need to just put forth like a bad plan and then adjust it rather than no plan at all. Here we go. This is me sort of live streaming from the cuff. It's probably not the best planned out live stream, but what happens is now we have this one in the tank. We can go back, we can sift through it, and we can build on it. Play, community, trust, the tyrant, the psychopath, the soul of humanity being either sick or healthy. And I think the healthy soul is able to play. You're able to accept the rules, but you're also able to push out into realms of freedom. And the tyrant and the psychopath are exposed when they're invited in to play the game. I talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago. It's like the kid who always changes the rules of the game so that the only outcome is that they win and you lose. That's the tyrant.
You're
Have to. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, all these complex things are multidimensional. I mean, I watched your whole conversation with Douglas, and I thought you guys did a very credible job, all three of you, of navigating unbelievably choppy waters. So that's the first thing I'd like to say, because one of the things I was trying to figure out when I was watching that is, do I think I could have done a better job of any of you? And I certainly didn't walk away from it with that idea in mind. But
well, and I also think, and that's I love that, Jordan there has a sense of humility. And I think, because it is such a complex idea, I think actually the way Dave Smith is handling it, the way Douglas Murray maybe is handling it, and the way kind of the internet is handling it is the way it should be. And I think that's part of the power behind podcasting. I don't even know if I feel like Joe Rogan does this intentionally. I don't know how intentional it is, but essentially he does sort of quote unquote platform these people who have fringe ideas. This was Douglas Murray's big sort of argument against Joe Rogan. It's like, why are you letting people talk who aren't experts? But Joe gives them a voice, and then they're exposed. Either they have something to what they're saying or they don't. And I think that that's okay. And honestly, like, and if you've watched me, if you've followed me at all on Twitter, I have been basically documenting how I think Douglas Murray kind of got exposed. He came on and he said what he said, and then it was kind of like, man, as you really listen to it, you kind of like, I don't know, like he's kind of like when you listen to a guy and like over time he convinces you of the opposite position. It was like I kind of went in there. And I've said this before, even as a Christian, I'm certainly sympathetic to the biblical view of Israel. I'm sympathetic to Israel as it is today, even although I don't think they're the same thing. I'm sympathetic to the idea. I am what I really am for is the kingdom of God. And so Douglas Murray is sort of on the pro-Israel side, and I'm kind of over here like, I don't think Dave Smith wants to be right. I don't think I want Dave Smith to be right. But Douglas Murray kind of lost me, a little bit in that argument. And so that's what happens. And I think Joe, I don't know. It'd be interesting to ask him, but like I think he does that intentionally. I think he knows what the internet does. He knows that if millions of people listen to this, then eventually over time, what comes out, what is sort of spit out 2 or 3 weeks later as the internet kind of chews it up is the weights and measures of truth and deception that was present at the original podcast, if that makes sense. We've been able to sift out what it is. All right, what else we got here? Okay, so we've already talked a little bit about the court jester, but we'll talk a bit more here because this had something to do with it.
Underneath all that, I thought there's a really unbelievably tricky problem here, and I think that's why it's made it poked up into. Well, you also set that conversation up, but it poked up and made itself manifest in that conversation. And the issue is, how do you identify the psychopathic pretenders? And it's even worse now, and then make a barrier, right? And so then the question is, how do you draw the line? And that's kind of what I was, because I've been watching these they're not right-wing, these psychopathic types manipulate the edge of the conservative movement for their own gain. And a lot of that's cloaked in anti-Semitic guys. There's plenty of anti-Semitism on the left too, by the way. So it's not unique to the right.
Well, particularly now.
Yes, particularly now.
Right.
And so, you've let your curiosity guide you, your curiosity and your desire for knowledge. This
a curiosity and a desire for knowledge guide you into this game. I mean, essentially, if you think about the gamification of podcasting, I mean, in a sense, it is play. We are playing.
Quest, you've let that guide you as a podcaster. And by the way, I'm trying to work through exactly the same sort of thing. How do you know, given your radical increase in stature over the last 10 years, how do you know when your curiosity and even your skepticism about the fact that things aren't the way that people say they are, because that's certainly been demonstrated in the last 10 years, how should anyone decide what guardrails to put up? Like, what do you look for?
That is a good question. It's actually a great question particularly for online communities. And isn't that part of the key, is that you are in a community. No one individual has a perfect BS detector. We don't all know when deception comes. We don't all know. Even, Joe, I would say someone like Joe, and anybody else that does podcasting a lot. And particularly the type of podcasting that Joe does, where he invites all kinds of conversation, certainly has a high level BS detector. But you outsource the task to the community. And again, that's where trust, that's where, and shout out to you guys in the chat. Like, I really feel, so one of my goals for this podcast, and one of the reasons I didn't do like a sort of normie Christian apologetics podcast, debate podcast, whatever, was I didn't really like the, I didn't like the comment section of those podcasts, if I'm being completely honest. And I wanted a comment section that would be helpful. And I think we've achieved that to some degree. I think we really have. And I think, so shout out to you guys. Like, I don't really have like moderators on this channel. I don't have a great need for that either. And maybe that will change. No, sorry, what am I doing? Maybe that will change. But for now, it's like the comment section, I learn a lot from you guys. And so we're sort of inviting more and more conversation. And I don't know, I just think that that's healthy. I think that there is a sense of community online that is real. It's not the same. It's not the same as embodied community, right? But I don't think it's not community. So anyway, shout out to you guys. If you're here in the chat, let me know. I was just checking the live stream because it feels quiet. And so maybe we're just all having a quiet night. But last week, I don't know what I was talking about, but you guys were chatting up a lot. And so yeah, maybe it just is. Maybe it just is what it is. But it looks like the stream is up and running, and all is well. So thank you guys for being with me. I was wondering if maybe I got tagged because I was playing clips and YouTube didn't like that. So here we are. Where do we go from here? Now, I left myself a little bit of a breadcrumb here, I think at the end. Yes. So we talked about the jester and the king playing a dangerous game. Check this out. So the soul of the kingdom is at stake. Again, is the king a tyrant? And will the game expose his tyrannical soul? Or will he be shown to be magnanimous and kind and generous and hospitable, able to laugh at himself, able to humble himself and think himself ridiculous? Some people will not make it out alive. Just ask Socrates and Jesus. So it is a game. It is played to the death, and that is true. Now, this was fascinating. So again, this conversation just has some legs. This, I think, was originally posted by Chief Nerd. When the time that I posted it, it had 6.4 million views, and it was Joe Rogan, Tim Dillon, roasting the idea of war tourism. And Tim Dillon, he's like, well, can I just go to war? Can I just go? Can I come back and say what I want to say? Or do I have to go and say what the people that sent me want me to say? And that's why comedians make some of the best podcasters. And again, it is kind of the role of the court jester. Let's go ahead and listen to this. And of course, Joe is mocking Douglas Murray, and everybody, it's like, whatever, he's a comedian. He's going to mock people sometimes. That's just the way it goes.
Have you been there?
Right, that's a good point.
You haven't been?
By the way, how is he in all these wars? Can I just go to wars? By the way, how are you allowed to just go to wars? Is
you
that the way
haven't- you should at least
Can you
have
just
the
go to war?
courtesy of going
Can I
there.
just go to wars, or do I have to come back and say what people want me to say about the wars? Can I go to the wars and have my own opinions, or do I have to have the opinions?
Not if you want to go back.
That's right. That's right. It's very interesting.
And that right there, that's the exposure that we're talking about. Can I just go here and think for myself, or do I have to go and say what they want me to say? Now, if you want to be invited into the next war to be a journalist, then you got to say what we want you to say.
This war tourism. How do I get on this war tourism?
Yeah.
I'd like to go to the Ukraine. I
you
want to
should go.
I want to go. I want to go to all this war tourism.
Do you have any awards that they can melt down and make bullets out of?
Joe, think about this. Do I seem like a guy that has a lot of awards?
Didn't you get one of those YouTube plaques when you hit 100,000?
I don't even know where they send it. I don't know where they're sending those YouTube plaques.
We've got a few of those.
But I like this idea
We'll
of
give you
war
one of ours.
tourism.
You can
I like
send
the
them.
idea of going to a war and then coming back having a very black and white view.
Yes, I've
been
Okay, again, so right. Black and white view means no nuance, which means we haven't put the ideas out into the community, right? We're not allowing freedom of thought. We're not allowing the ideas to be questioned by the community. It's just a black and white view. I want to go and come back with a black and white view. Of course, they're mocking this idea, which is kind of hilarious, right? But what's being exposed is some very serious truth. It's like, this is a dangerous game, isn't it?
There. I get it, and I know, and interesting. Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I love that.
You feel better than the other people.
Well,
because
of
you
course,
just say
there's a
you've been
lot of people. It gets very murky. Most people I know that have been to war have a very murky, complex view of things. But it is good to go to a war and then come back and be as sure as you were before you came.
there. You don't have to go for very long.
No, you go for an hour.
Couple hours.
It's a lunch.
yeah.
It's lunch on
Put
the
on
front
a
line.
flak jacket that says press.
Tea on the front lines, and then you come back and you have all the talking. Yeah.
Have you?
All right. So, okay, I guess YouTube did tag my live stream. So hopefully everybody's still hanging in there. We've detected if your live stream belongs to somebody else, your stream will be temporarily blocked. If you plan to continue, please. Whatever. All right. So maybe they're shutting us down. I don't know. But whatever. Hopefully you guys are still hanging in there. If you are, it says currently one viewer. I think I got blocked. But if you are here, let me know. Type something in the chat so I know we're still there. I think so. Usually I can play these clips on Twitter. I think that one I probably should have sped it up so that I didn't get nabbed, but whatever. It's just long. It's a little bit longer of a clip. Most of them are about 30 seconds. So anyway, 135. Sorry, Joe. Hopefully the point was made, though. Hopefully the point was made before we got kicked off. Maybe we're still here. I don't know. It doesn't say. It's weird. It says the video may be blocked. So maybe if you're here, you can still see it, but nobody else is going to see it. It's not going to be shared to anybody else. Anyway. What I thought was interesting, well, and then Dave Smith points out that Douglas Murray is making money off of this, which is horrible and tragic. And then I got Nate Heil. That was interesting. I'm not sure, Nate, again, I didn't know if I triggered something here, but I was I was highlighting some of this content, and Nate's point again. It's good to put it out there. It's like he called it bullying and hazing, that he wasn't speaking truth to power, and I guess I just see it a different way. So he did say that the war tourism thing is a pure spin. Again, I don't. Maybe you guys feel the same way, but let me know. Let me know why. So, all right. I think we gave a shout out to Sword in the Staff Multiverse. We looked at Joe Rogan. We'll carve up some of this other Jordan Peterson. Yeah, I think I'll have to do a clip and then post it as a video rather than a live stream. And I think probably because the live stream got tagged, I will shut it down here. So if you guys are still hanging in there with me, thank you for being here, and I will definitely catch you in the next one. La-di-da. Let's see. Here's what we'll do. Let's see. Again, I always have like a bit of a delay. So I think I've done this before where YouTube, I get a warning from YouTube, but I don't know. I guess I gotta still learn how to navigate some of this stuff. The fair use thing seems to be a little unclear from the YouTube side of things. So thanks for hanging out. If you're still with me, I will, I think probably Monday I will put out another video. It'll probably be this Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson video. I don't know why I'm putting my headphones back in my head, but if you haven't checked it out yet, check out the Matt C podcast. That was fun. And yeah, I think that's where we'll go for now. Check out Matt C, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.